everyone, my name is Emma Anglin and we have been reading through my book, Dragon's Wish. We are now on chapter 6. In our last chapter, chapter 5, Sevrin found his way into the city and he's going to meet up with his friends. In chapter 6, we're going to find out what they're getting up to during this Sevrin's first procession. And now, chapter 6.
Within minutes, Henry and Sevrin had located several other boys their age. While Sevrin wouldn't call them friends, some like the merchant's son were above his class level. They were certainly fun to run around with. On a day like today, no one cared who associated with whom. They wandered up and down the streets and watched smoked meat sellers, fruit dealers, and the baker boy sell their wares to a captive audience trapped in line. They played tricks on the girls who had taken to gawking at the big houses on the noblemen's side of town, and they generally made harmless mischief their parents would box their ears for later. They trotted all over the city, exploring places they'd never be allowed to visit on normal days, especially Sevrin, who was deemed too common to frequent the higher-class streets containing the tailor shop and the goldsmith shop. All the places had signs hanging in front of their doors with pictures depicting the type of place it was: a mortar and pestle for the apothecary shop or scissors for the tailor, perfect for those who couldn't read. Those signs, most wooden, but some made from stone, caught Severin's attention. The detail in the pictures was something to behold. I once tried to carve something in stone. Sevrin gazed at a stone sign of a tankard hanging from the tavern, but it didn't turn out. You? William, the merchant's son, sniffed. You're a farmer. You're not allowed to apprentice as anything else. I don't want to be a stonemason. Sevrin gazed up at the sky where fluffy white clouds drifted past a blue sky. I wanted to make something for my mum. Come out terrible, but she liked it anyway. You'll be arrested. William turned up his nose. It's a violation of sumptuary laws. Sevrin furrowed his brows. Sumptu what? Ah, shove off, you blowhard. Bradley, the blacksmith's son, shoved William aside. Never mind, Sevrin. We all know you ain't trying to reach above your means. Sevrin raised an eyebrow, but shook his head. No use worrying about things he didn't understand. As they rounded the corner, a curious sight caught Severin's attention. A wrought iron fence with delicately cast swirls between its bars held back a stand of trees, shedding their shade across the street. Hey, look! Sevrin rushed to the fence. It looks like a forest! He gaped at the amount of trees clustered together on the other side of the fence. A forest in the middle of the city. What an idea! It's not a forest, it's an orchard, William said. The king's orchard. I know what it is. Without hesitation, Sevrin squeezed through the bars. Sevrin, what are you doing? William gripped the bars. You can't go in there. It belongs to the king. I won't go in far. I've never seen a true orchard before. My mum wants to plant one, but we only have 2 trees so far. Sevrin examined the trees as they wandered through their trunks. All were laden with apples of varying ripeness. These apples are incredible. Apples? I love apples. Bradley squeezed in. He rushed past Sevrin, bumping into him as he went. Race you to the top! Sevrin grinned, the thrill of competition rising in his belly. You'll never beat me! He darted after him. The 2 of them tackled a tree and scaled the trunk. Climbing up to catch a higher branch, Sevrin hauled himself among the leaves and shimmied up the tree. Ha! Sevrin looked down at Bradley. I win! Bradley crossed his arms while straddling a branch. I wasn't ready. Get down from there, you lot! William stood at the base of the tree, pointing at the ground. You're not allowed up there. It's all right, Will. Henry leapt for a branch. You know the castle relaxes the rules on account of the procession. No one will mind. Besides, the guards are too busy watching the king and queen to bother about us. I don't know. William glanced around. Trespassing on noble manners is one thing, but this is the king's orchard. Then you will rue the day you walked into my orchard. Sevrin stood on his branch. Bow before me, miserable curs. I am king of the orchard. He let out a loud bellow of a laugh. King of the orchard, huh? Bradley caught Severin's foot. Hey, stop! Sevrin kicked him. You'll make me fall. You're being dethroned, your majesty. Bradley pulled Severin's foot from his perch. Sevrin plummeted through the leaves but managed to catch a lower branch before he crashed into the ground. How's that, Mr. King of the Tree? Bradley laughed from its perch. Ah, yeah? Sevrin launched at Bradley's branch, catching hold of it. Oh, dear. A small voice drifted up from the ground. Sevrin halted mid-swing. Glancing around, he caught sight of a girl, a lady-in-waiting judging by her clothes. She wore a green dress with a white apron over it. Her black hair was covered by a simple light green transparent veil. The girl gazed up at one of the trees for a moment before reaching on her tippy toes for an apple on a low branch. Her fingers grazed the fruit, but she couldn't pick it. However am I to manage this? Sevrin climbed down to the lowest branch, picked an apple, and held it out to her. Here you go. What the? The girl started. What are you doing up there? Thrusting her hands on her hips, she snorted through her nose. Come down this instant. This is the king's orchard. You can't be up there. That's what I told him. William approached her. They wouldn't listen. We're not doing any harm. Severn swung his feet. We just wanted to have a bit of fun. Henry waved his hands. Besides, the guards are too busy guarding the king and queen to bother with us. Not if I call them. The girl stomped her foot. Now, you come down, or I'll... Maria? Another voice, this one sounded like a gentle spring breeze, danced through the trees. A girl with fair brown hair, cut up in pearls, green eyes which reminded Severn of the lake he knew tucked in the valley nearby, and a smattering of honey-colored freckles on her face threaded through the trees. She wore a light blue dress, which fluttered as she walked. As soon as Severn saw her, his throat constricted. He had never seen another girl like her before. Princess! Maria swung around to face her. You shouldn't be out here. You were gone ever so long. The princess approached her. Have you gotten my apple? Apologies, your highness. Maria frowned at Severn. Some peasants seem to have infested your orchard. What? The princess gazed up at the branches. Oh my! How on earth did you get up there? Severn stiffened. She was looking right at him, her clear eyes appraising him. He gulped and managed to stammer. We climbed. Really? All the way up there? The princess clapped her hands. You are excellent climbers. Severn's face burned. At that moment, he wanted to impress her. He'd do anything to impress her. So, before he knew what he was saying, he raised his hands and blurted, I can climb the highest. The princess's face lit up. Can you? She pressed her hands together. Are you that good? Of course, Severn pointed to himself. I'm the best climber in the city. Are not, Bradley yelled from his perch. Look how high I've climbed, much higher than you. Only because you knocked me down, Severn snorted. I do a fair bit of climbing myself. William rubbed the back of his neck. I am at your service, Princess Desimone. Desimone. Severn gazed at the princess. What a perfectly beautiful name for a perfectly beautiful girl. Settle down, everyone. Princess Desimone waved her hands to calm them. I know how to resolve this. We'll have a race. Severn stared at the princess, his mouth parting a little. That was a smart idea. An obvious and smart idea. Of course they could settle it with a race. Why didn't he think of it himself? I came out here because I wanted an apple. Princess Desimone pointed to an apple on a high branch of a tree a few feet away from them. Do you see that pinkish one up there? I wonder which of you can retrieve it for me. Without a word, Bradley launched himself off his branch and dove into the tree next to his, scrambling to get to the tree in question. All the other boys did too. Severn tucked the apple he had picked into his pocket, dropped to the ground, rushed to the tree, and scaled up its trunk. He swung past Bradley, plucked the apple, and then hopped out of the tree, landing with a roll. He came to his feet in front of the princess. Here you are! He polished it on his shirt before presenting it to her. Well done! Princess Desimone took the apple from him. From here on in, you will be known as... My name is Sevrin, son of Timuron. You will be known as Sevrin, Lord of Apples. Princess Desimone raised the apple. Go on then, kneel. Sevrin got down on one knee as he had seen a man do once when his father took him to see a squire get knighted. The princess used her apple to touch his shoulders and his head. Rise, Sir Apple. Thank you kindly, your highness. Sevrin grinned at her as he stood. No, thank you. Princess Desimone smiled at him, a smile which made her freckles shift and her eyes squint. Severn caught his breath. Her smile struck him right in the chest. She turned her brilliant smile to the rest of them. Thank you all. You gave me such entertainment on a rather boring day. Boring? Henry dropped out of the tree. How can it be boring? It's procession day. You thought it was boring, Severn said, eyeing him. I didn't say that. Henry crossed his arms. I said it was crowded. I'm not normally allowed outside on procession day. Princess Desimone gripped the apple in her hands. I've always wanted to go out onto the streets and see the city, but... She sighed, her eyes taking on a faraway look. In a moment she shook her head. You all relieved me of my burden by putting on a most impressive display. She sighed, gazing up at the tree canopy. I wish I could climb up there. Do you want to? Sevrin extended his hand to her. Oh, no! Princess Desimone waved her hands as she took a step back. I don't know how to climb. I'll give you a boost. Severn dropped to his knees and laced his fingers. Step on my hands, and they'll pull you up. Henry, Bradley. The two boys dropped to a low branch, extending their hands to her. Princess Desimone gazed at all of them before she carefully set her apple down. Oh, Princess, don't! Maria wrung her hands. You can't. Ladies don't climb trees. I'm not a lady yet, Maria, Princess Desimone said. Mother says I'm still a girl. I won't be a lady until my 13th birthday. Your mother won't be pleased, neither will Nurse. They won't know if no one tells them. Princess Desimone gave her a look. Right? What if you get hurt? Maria clasped her hands. I'll be fine. Princess Desimone stepped on Severin's hands. I won't let anything happen to her, Maria. Sevrin glanced at Maria as he lifted the princess up. The two boys pulled her into the tree where she settled on a low branch. Don't try climbing any higher than that, Princess. He pulled himself up beside her. Not on your first try. This is high enough. Princess Desimone gazed at her surroundings. Look at that! I'm up a tree! I've always wanted to try this. Hi, Maria! She waved at her. Do be careful, Your Highness. Maria paced underneath the tree. You're awfully high up. It's not that high, really. Severn reached down to Maria. Would you like to try? Absolutely not. Maria thrust her nose into the air. Then, would you like the apple I picked for you? Severn pulled it out of his pocket. Here. He handed it to her. Really? Maria turned to the princess. May I? Yes, of course. Princess Desimone raised her hands. You may all have one as a reward. With a chair, the boys set out to get an apple for themselves. Severn, however, stayed where he was, seated beside the princess. He watched Maria sit underneath the tree to enjoy her apple. Maria is a worrywart. Princess Desimone watched the boys crawling all over the trees. I can't blame her, though. I've never even left the castle grounds. You haven't? Princess Desimone shook her head. The orchard is as far as I'm allowed to go. Father thinks it's too dangerous for me in the city. I can't go anywhere unless I have a knight to escort me, but all the knights are too busy with their duties. At night, when we feast together in the grand hall, they regale me with all sorts of incredible stories about beautifully blue lakes and bountiful forests and the mountains where dragons live. I wish I could see it all with my own eyes just once. This is the first time I've met someone from outside the castle. It was my first time meeting someone from inside the castle. Severn gave her a smile. I wish it wouldn't be the last. It was a pleasure to meet all of you. Princess Desimone patted his hand. But for now I must be going. Already? Severn said, shoulders slumping. I'm afraid so. Nurse will be worried. Princess Desimone gazed at the ground. How do I get down? Severn held her hand. Slide down and drop to your feet. I'll help. Maria hopped to her feet, extending her hands to help the princess. Take it slow, Severn said. Princess Desimone slid to the edge of the branch, holding on to Severn as she inched down. Princess! A large woman bellowed as she marched over. What do you think you're doing? Princess Desimone yelped, the sudden noise jolting her. Her foot slipped. I got you. Severn caught her before she fell. He lowered her to the ground. Princess! The woman stomped over to her like an ogress. Did I see you climbing trees? Like a common peasant? Princess Desimone shrank. Nurse, I was... I will not hear your excuses. Nurse gripped her arm harder than she needed to. How dare you associate with this common riffraff? You should know better. It is beneath you to be seen with them. Ugh! She shuddered. The sight of them gives me the creeps. If it wasn't procession day, I'd have them hauled off to the dungeon for setting their eyes on you. And you dare speak with them and behave in their vulgar ways? I'm sorry, Nurse. Princess Desimone hung her head. Wait till your mother hears about this. Nurse jerked Princess Desimone's hand to lead her inside. Please, Nurse, don't blame the princess. Maria stood in front of them. She only wanted an apple. Of course I don't blame her. Not entirely. I blame you, Maria. The nurse turned her scowl to Maria. You're supposed to take care of the princess. What if she got hurt? This is your fault, you useless girl. She smacked Maria across her face. Princess Desimone gasped, covering her mouth with her hands. Maria stood without a sound, but her cheek turned red. Tears brimmed in her eyes. Severn felt his cheeks burn. It was one thing to insult him, but to smack Maria, who had done nothing wrong? He dropped out of the tree, snatched a rotten apple off the ground, and launched it at Nurse. It splattered on her back. With a cry, the nurse swung around. "Leave them alone, you wench!" Sevrin shouted. Nurse's face turned a reddish purple. "I beg your pardon, Sevrin," William hissed through his teeth. "Shush!" Sevrin didn't heed him. "Maria didn't do anything wrong. She's been trying to help the princess." He shoved a finger into Nurse's face. "You're the one who nearly made her fall. If she got hurt, it would be your fault. You're the useless one." "How dare you speak to me in such a manner?" Nurse smacked him across the cheek with the back of her hand. Now Sevrin was no stranger to smacks. His mother slapped him when he used a foul word, and his father took a switch to his behind when he misbehaved. But never in all his life had he felt a blow like this. It was like being kicked in the teeth by a horse. He spun and toppled to the ground, tasting blood. "Learn your place, peasant!" Nurse stood up straight. "On the ground, just as you are." Sevrin pulled himself to his knees. His cheek felt warm. Certainly a bruise would be forthcoming. Tears welled his eyes, but he willed them not to fall. No tears, not in front of the ogress. Instead, he pulled himself to his feet and screwed up his face into a glare. "I'll learn my place as soon as you learn some manners, hag!" "Ooh!" The boys in the trees above snickered amongst themselves, but otherwise didn't intervene. "Why, you—" Nurse raised her hand, this time in a fist. Princess Desimone stood between them, raising her hands to stop her. "That's enough, Nurse. Please, no more." "You dare speak up for them, Princess?" Nurse snarled. "Please, Nurse, no more violence on my behalf. It's procession day." Desimone stood up straight and tall, creating a barrier between Sevrin and Nurse. Sevrin gazed at the princess again. Beautiful, smart, and brave? There is no other girl in the world like her. Nurse narrowed her eyes as she examined the princess. With a snort through her nose, she turned away. "Not worth my time, anyway. Come along, Princess." She narrowed her eyes at Sevrin. "Stupid peasant." She kicked dirt on him before she left. Maria scuttled after her. Princess Desimone turned to leave, but not before giving Sevrin a smile. A small one, but one which warmed Sevrin to his toes. "Thank you," she whispered before she trotted after Nurse. "Okay," Sevrin breathed as he watched her leave. As he did, he noted her apple under the tree where she had left it. He snatched it up and rushed to the princess. "You forgot this." He set the apple in her hands, ignoring the angry snarls from Nurse. Princess Desimone's small smile turned into a wide grin. "Thank you, Sir Apple." She reached over and pecked him on the cheek before ducking inside. "Princess!" Nurse balked before rushing in after her. Maria stared at him in silence for a few seconds before following after them. Sevrin touched his cheek where Princess Desimone had kissed him. A smile spread across his face. "Sevrin," Henry slapped his hand on his shoulder. "Let's get out of here." He jerked a thumb over his shoulder. "I don't think the nurse will let us stay in here for long, not after what you did." Sevrin turned. As one, the boys had fled. He and Henry were the only ones left. With a nod, Sevrin made his way to the fence. Nurse or not, he'd be back next year. Anything for a chance to see Princess Desimone again.
Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, please like, subscribe, comment, and click the notification bell. You can also share it if you think somebody else would like this story. If you want to pick up the book, the link will be in the description. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time for Chapter 7. Bye!